Your business is thriving, and it's time to take it to the next level. We have what you need right here on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about scaling a business, and we have two great executives from iconic Southern California restaurants to share their wisdom about scaling and growth. Joining us are Roger Koch, founder of RYAMK Consulting, and Raul Porto, founder of Porto's Bakery. We also have Professor Lorenzo Bizzi delivering today's leadership lesson. We have a lot of great things coming, so let's get things started with the quote of the day. Today's quote comes from Mats Lederhausen, renowned scaling consultant. Think big, start small, then scale or fail fast. It's now time to introduce our first guest, Roger Koch. Roger is currently the founder and managing partner of RYAMK Consulting, which partners with privately held businesses to provide strategic advice and business guidance. Prior to founding RYAMK Consulting, Roger was the CFO for In-N-Out Burger for 22 years. In all, Roger spent 35 years with In-N-Out Burger, helping to grow the organization from 32 stores to almost 350 stores upon his retirement in 2019. He now works with several businesses to help them meet the challenges of scaling and growth. Please welcome to the show, Roger Koch.
Thank you, Jay. I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, Roger, let's start with your early career journey and what led you to In-N-Out Burger.
Well, I worked for a CPA firm in the San Gabriel Valley for a couple of years, a CPA, and In-N-Out was our client, and I was the supervisor on the account for 2 years. When I started there, In-N-Out had 25 stores, and then they offered me a position as an accounting manager in 1984, and I came over to In-N-Out. At that time, we had 32 stores, and so it was quite the journey. At that point in time, we were really small, didn't even have an IT. IT was something new at that point in time. We actually had a handwritten set of accounting records, believe it or not. No HR. No risk management, no legal, had to wear a lot of different hats during that period of time and learn a lot of different things, filled in all those different areas. And eventually I got promoted to controller after a couple of years, and then got promoted to director of finance a few years after that, and then vice president of administration a few years after that, and then I assumed my role as CFO in 1997.
And so in 1997, how large was the company when you became the CFO?
When I became the CFO, it was a little over 100 stores.
A little over 100 stores.
Yeah.
And so in a large multi-unit restaurant chain like that, what role does the CFO end up playing?
Well, it was a little different in an organization where it's a little, not a huge organization, but certainly as a CFO, you need to keep track of all the finances. But what I quickly found out, and what I like to talk about people now when they're coming into the financial roles, is that you need to be really a business partner, not just the financial piece of the business. And obviously a CFO has a role in keeping track of the finances and how the organization is doing financially, but you really need to become a business partner. And really, the role of the CFO is to kind of help guide the organization to maximize its assets to do the best job for the organization and carry out its mission and developing its brand.
So you've had a wonderful opportunity to grow in your career as the business was also growing.
Oh, absolutely. It was a wonderful experience at the time. I got to work very closely with Rich Snyder, who was our CEO. He was one of the sons of the founders. and there was another brother involved as well, Guy. And I learned a lot from him and got to wear a lot of different hats. And so we were very much entrepreneurial type of company. I got to learn really right directly from Rich and got to learn a lot of different things. It really broadened my perspective on business, and I think really helped me as I got to the CFO role to have a much more well-rounded view of the business and not look at things just from a financial perspective, but from the business as a whole, and really from store operations. You know, we were all about store operations. That's really the key of our organization. We had a saying that we like to say that, you know, you're either serving a customer or serving somebody that is serving the customer. And really, we were very much operationally focused and taking care of our customer.
So could you share some of the core values that
Sure.
the founders of In-N-Out really held to be true?
Yeah, we had 3 letters that we always used. It was QFC, and it always wrapped around taking care of our customer at the highest level. And the Q stood for quality. And so everything, we never skimped on quality. Just some insight on that. And to this day, we're the same way. We don't own a freezer in the organization. We get the sides of beef in. We actually have our own butchers on staff who hand debone it. We grind it ourselves, we patty it ourselves, and we ship it to our stores ourselves. And that goes through everything. We send out the potatoes, the lettuce, the tomato, onions whole to the stores. They wash and slice those every couple hours, so it's as fresh as possible. You probably have seen that potato dicer in the store and the French fries. So that quality from the get-go was always there, and we never deviated from that. So that Q is the first thing, is quality, and then F is friendliness. And we were very much customer service oriented. Rich had a saying that he liked to use, you know, as we hired people for the stores, he would say, you know, we can teach skills, but we can't teach smiles. And so we're really focused on hiring people that were friendly, that had a customer service heart, that wanted to serve the customer. And the customer was everything to us. And it wasn't just words on a PowerPoint. It was really in our heart and soul. We considered our customers our guests as they came into our stores. And similar to a guest coming into your house, you want to take care of them in the highest possible way. You just want to go out of your way. And we just instilled that philosophy throughout the organization. And then the C was for cleanliness. And in the restaurant business, you have to have the highest standards of being clean, taking care of things, have a spotless, sparkling environment. That was super key to us. So those 3 things were kind of the cornerstones, and they all wrapped around the customer, taking care of that customer at the very highest level.
And so while you were there, the restaurant company grew from 30 restaurants to over 350 stores. How did In-N-Out maintain its core values with such incredible growth?
Yeah, it all comes down to people and taking care of your people. And I say people inside the organization. And specifically, a lot of organizations say they're store operationally focused, but we are 100%. I would often, you know, we have the support departments and things like that, and I was in the support departments. And I've often said, you know, for the customer, you know, I had a fancy title and whatever, but for the customer, the most important person to them was that store person taking their order, store associate taking their order, the store associate cooking their burger, their fry, and then that store associate handing out that burger and fry and drink to them at the end. Way more important than me, to be quite honest with you. And you have to know your role in the organization and where you fit. It's all about taking care of the customer. Our store ops people do that at the highest level. And I was honored to work with them. They inspired me, quite honestly, throughout my career. And so taking care, like we had things that we did throughout the organization, or we to this day, our minimum wage in California is $19 an hour. That's what we start people off. We believe in paying our people a fair wage, paying beyond what a lot of people pay. Our store managers are paid significantly beyond what their counterpoints are paid in the industry. And we believe in that. We let them share in the growth, the profitability, and they deserve that because they're the ones that make it happen at the store level. So we instilled a lot of these systems, and you can have all the systems in the world, but it all comes down to those people carrying those out. And if you take really good care of your people, they will take good care of our customers. And I think that's really the key to our success.
So you've had a lot of strong managers through the years.
Absolutely.
With that many restaurants, you have to have strong managers. And are those managers developed from within, or are you?
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting. People don't realize this, but we hire in, we call it a level 1, and then we have 7 levels in the stores, and they get substantial pay raises for each of those levels. And then we have 4 levels of management, of 4th level, 3rd, 2nd, and then manager. 100% of our store management people started off at level 1. There's not a single store management person that we have in the organization that didn't start off at level 1. And we're a firm believer of starting everybody out, giving people opportunities to grow in the organization, and allowing them to continue to grow as we grow as an organization. So that's a real key component because once a manager becomes a manager, they work literally every single position in the store, and they understand what their crews are going through, and that basis is another real key to the success.
So through these years, you've developed a lot of wisdom. You've gotten to really see some of the best practices, and not just at In-N-Out Burger, but also in working with other companies that are growing and wanting to grow.
Absolutely.
What must companies do if they want to successfully scale their business?
Well, you know, I keep coming back to store operation, but it's all in store operations. And so if you want to scale things, you need to invest in your people. You need to have the training available. You need to have the incentive programs available where they can participate in the growth and success of the company. You need to take care of those people and really, from your heart and soul, care for them and value them. And if you do that, you will be able to scale. You know, if you don't, and you try to control everything, or if you don't have that, people don't have that caring, you know, they'll end up having a lot of turnover, and then as you try to scale, you're not going to have the resources and the people to carry that out. Another statistic is that, you know, our average store manager's been with us for 15 plus years, which is unheard of in our industry. But it's a testimony to how, you know, how much we value them and how we take care of them. And because of that, they do just a fantastic job out there. So, you know, you could have all the systems in the world, but if you don't have the people to execute them, it's not going to work. So it's all about caring for your people, being a servant leader, and doing everything in your power to take care of them.
So growing is not just about having the customers, and it's not just about having the finances to be able to grow and expand, but you've got to have the people in place in those leadership roles to be able to support the growth.
Absolutely. And that's all comes down to taking care of those people. And, you know, I said before, from my perspective, I'm on the support side. And as I use the analogy, I'll use this analogy. I used it all the time when I was talking to people in the organization that would come in on the support side. It's like a play, right? And our store associates are the actors and actresses in the play. In the support department, we're like the wardrobe or the lighting or the makeup. We're behind the scenes. We're not in the front of the stage. And the accolades come to our store associates, and we kind of live vicariously through those accolades. So, you know, it's having that balance is super key in the organization, and really realizing, where does our store operation people are people that take care of our customers. Without our customers, we wouldn't be anything. We wouldn't be in business. So we have to support them so that they can do a great job in supporting and taking care of our customers.
So most of what we've talked about so far has been about businesses and what companies can do to grow. But let's talk about individuals.
Sure.
If an individual wants to aspire towards an executive role and really achieve great things in their career, what advice would you give them?
Well, what I would tell them, if they're looking specifically in, let's say, the financial role, that's the one I could talk to. Try to be more than just the I give a talk sometimes. I classify a talk as how to become the non-financial CFO and a true business partner. And that's the key, and where we are in this day and age, is you can't just be the financial arm. You have to be a business partner. So I would tell people, as they get into, first and foremost, get into a business or an area of business that you have a passion for. Don't just take a job in somewhere because maybe it's the best job at this point in time, but it's in an industry that you have no interest in, or you don't have a passion for. Go into a business that you have a passion for, that you have curiosity, that sparks you every day, that you get up, that, I want to learn more. And then when you get there, just don't pigeonhole yourself in a narrow arm of that business. Branch out, network with people, learn operations, learn, IT, learn talk to different people within the organization to get a better, more rounded view of the organization. I was very fortunate when I started, like I told you, that we were smaller and I got exposed to all these different areas. And it served me really well when I became the CFO, because I understood all those areas and I kept connected, especially to store operations. That's the key. So I would tell people, first pick a business or an area that you've got a passion for. And then once you get in that organization, get a rounded, be curious, reach out, talk to people in different areas of the company. So as you rise up in your role and you take on more responsibility, you have a much broader view of the organization, much broader base.
So a person's specialty might help them get into industries or get into certain roles, but it's their ability to work with other groups, other departments, other people. That's going to define.
That's going to define them. That's going to separate them from being a specialist to being somebody that can rise and become an executive and be a true business partner for the organization. That I've seen in a lot of careers where people have just really narrowly kind of defined what they were doing. And it limits their growth, because as you rise up, you have to understand how everything fits in the organization, how everything interacts. And it's very key. And the only way you're going to develop that is to go out and start to network and start to get experience with different areas of the business. So it's a real key if you want to rise up to that executive role.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for joining us and
Thank
for
you.
participating in this interview. In a little while, we're going to have you back on with our other guest, Raul Porto, and we're going to talk about scaling a business together as part of a panel discussion.
Oh, I look forward to that, Jay. Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. It's time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? Today's Did You Know comes from restaurantcoach.com. We bring you the 4 levels of the restaurant profit pyramid. Where does your restaurant fit? The lowest level is what we call struggling, which consists of 20% of all restaurants, which make no profit. They might even lose money. The next level is surviving, which consists of 60% of all restaurants, which make up to 5% profit. The next level is thriving, which consists of 15% of the restaurants out there that make up to 15% profit. And finally, the top of the restaurant pyramid, driving, which consists of the top 5% of all restaurants, which make more than 15% profit. Now let's get to today's Leadership Countdown, which comes from the California Business Journal. We bring you the 3 indicators that it is time to scale and grow your business. Number 1, high demand seasons are frequent and growing. Number 2, you start turning away business due to capacity issues. And the number 3 reason it's time to grow your business, you have a successful track record for your concept and system. Don't go anywhere. We have Raul Porto in the studio right after this word from the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership. The Bringing Learning to Work program is our way of connecting the faculty of Cal State Fullerton with the business community of Orange County and Southern California. We have over 72 training programs that are available via distance or face-to-face. And the faculty come to your company and they deliver the training to your employees.
The Bringing Learning to Work program is really fundamentally, it's leadership programming. We do diversity and emotional intelligence training. We partner with Cal State Fullerton because they had subject matter experts in these fields. And we're really fortunate and privileged to be able to do that.
Many companies can't afford training and development personnel. And so this is a great opportunity to leverage Cal State's faculty to help them develop their learning programs.
The leadership of the center and the students allow me to not only bring leadership development to my company, but allow me to interact with some amazing students who have grit, potential, and just amazing futures in front of them, and I get to take part of that. It's a wonderful feeling.
When your organization is ready to develop its talent, reach out to the Center for Leadership and we'll help get you there. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest is Raul Porto. Raul is a seasoned leader in the food industry with over 4 decades of experience. He is the president and owner of Porto's Bakery, a Southern California-based bakery and restaurant concept that has become an iconic brand under his leadership. The company, which started as a home-based operation in Cuba in the 1960s, has grown to 6 locations in the Los Angeles area, with a 7th set to open in downtown Disney in 2024. Raul's leadership, expertise, and commitment to quality have impacted the success and growth of Porto's Bakery, making it a legendary destination for millions of guests every year. Please welcome Raul Porto.
Morning. Thank you for having me. And I'm really excited about being here and sharing our story with you.
That's terrific. Well, let's jump right in and let's talk about the genesis story of Porto's Bakery. How did it all begin?
Well, it's going to be a tough one. It's a long story, but I'll try to condense it as much as possible and get the gist of it. The bakery really started with my mother in Cuba in the 1960s, mid-60s. Cuba fell into communism, and my parents wanted to leave Cuba. They didn't agree with it, and it just wasn't working for them. So my grandmother, who was at the time living in the United States, petitioned us, the family, to come to the United States. Now, the minute that anybody would apply to leave the country, you were pretty much treated as a traitor. So one of the first things they do is they fire you from your jobs. So my mother and father were both fired from their jobs, and with there was no way of surviving. There was no social network or anything like that. So my mother started baking out of the house. So for the next 5 years, which is what it took for us to get our permit to leave the country and to be accepted in the United States, my mother, the man gets sent, I didn't mention that, into working camps where they, cut sugarcane, picked fruits or whatever. So for the next those 5 years, my father was sent out to a camp for months, and then they would come back and out again for a few more months. And my mother at the time, in order to feed the family, basically started making cakes basically out of the house. And it was funny because, unlike the United States where entrepreneurship, like, the meeting we're having today, and it's something that is very thought of and it's almost, encouraged. In Cuba, it's almost illegal. So it was really, she was doing, an entrepreneur, which is a totally illegal thing in Cuba. Lucky for us and for her, we never got into any kind of trouble baking cakes, but, it was, if you follow the law, it was illegal. There was no businesses allowed. And
so you came over to the U.S.?
Right. So when we come to the United States, my mother tells me the story that she's on the plane. We landed in Miami. And then in Miami, we basically take a second flight to California, where my grandmother was living at. And on the way there, she says, she's super excited to be out. But now the reality is like, okay, what am I going to do now? And she didn't know what to do. So when we get to the airport, a friend that was there to pick us up said to my mother, "I'm so glad you're here because nobody makes a cake like you. And my daughter's getting married in 2 months and I need a cake." So my mother says it was one of those, moments where you go, oh my gosh, you could see like the future for her. So we moved to LA. We moved into a small apartment and my mother started making cakes. But, as you can imagine, she didn't really know a lot of people and we didn't have a lot of friends at that time because we just didn't know anybody. We had just gotten to this country. So it was a very slow process. And she tried to get jobs in different bakeries, but at that time, women were not hired into a bakery. It was more of a man's job, consider that. So she had a hard time getting a job. So she just continued on making pastries and cakes out of the house, and it continued to evolve. And 5 years later, my father and her decided to open a small little shop, which we did, and with the help of my 2 sisters and I, and my grandmother, actually, that was the whole team. And we started, it was a tiny bakery, and from there we continued to, it was a slow start. You earlier mentioned the levels of, and I kind of lived through each and every one of those. And at the beginning, we weren't making any money. It was just survival. And lucky for us, my father was working outside the bakery. So it was just my mother and the kids. And like I said, my grandmother. And, we just tried to survive and do a better job every day and to improve. And we didn't know anything about marketing, business. We came from a communist country where none of that existed, or you didn't know anything about it. Finance, banking, anything you can think of in the business world, we knew nothing about. We just knew how to make pastries. My mother knew how to make great pastries. And that's really all we did, and that's what we focus on. And little by little, we started getting more and more customers. And 3 years later, we moved to Glendale, and the neighborhood kind of wasn't doing so well. We started in LA, in the Silver Lake area, and the neighborhoods kind of started going downhill. And my father was a little concerned about, all the young kids and my mother being there till night. And so we moved to Glendale. It was a better neighborhood at that time. And we opened one bakery there, and then we went back and shut down the original bakery. And then in Glendale for the next, till today, we're still there. But we actually moved into 4 locations in the city of Glendale on the same block. So we would, we started with the original one in Glendale. And then, a few years later, we were so busy that we moved to across the street.
A little bigger.
And then we just kept doing that. And we did it 4 times in the same block. And then at that point, we said, okay, well, I don't think we can get any bigger in this block. That we're taking all the parking. We're taking, it just can't do it. So then that's when we decided to open a second location.
And so how did you know? Well, that sounds like that was when you knew. So your business was booming and you had more business, more customers than you could even serve.
Right. It was a long time to get to that, where we decided to open the second location. It almost took us 25 years or so. And I think, first of all, like I said, we came from a communist country. We didn't really know what capitalism is like or entrepreneurship. We didn't have, we didn't see shows like this one. We just didn't know. And all we knew was just to work. And that's what we went in every day, did a great job, took care of our customers. And when we opened, I would say 10, 11 years after we opened the original store, we moved into our 3rd location, and that one was a much bigger location. And we really could see that. And for whatever reason, it's almost like we didn't exist before that. So we opened the third location, and it was, had a wider frontage. And all of a sudden, everybody in the neighborhood started recognizing us. I mean, people would come in and say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you guys were here." And we're like, "Oh my God, we've been here for 10 years. What do you mean we didn't know?" But just the way it was. And we really, I don't remember the numbers, but I'm sure we doubled our sales or exposure overnight, basically, just from that location. And then we basically moved to another location, another location on the same block, maybe 4 or 5 years later, just because we had outgrown that one. And then by that point, we could tell that we had something special and that customers really enjoyed it, and they kept coming back, and we started going really fast at that point.
Yeah. And so that's kind of when you knew that
Yes.
this was going to work.
Yes.
This is going to be a success.
And my sister and I were all going to college while the bakery was kind of growing, and my mother was taking care of it, and my father kept working because we really weren't making any money. And so he kept working for maybe 7 years outside of the bakery. And then after the 7th year, he actually came in and started working with us. And I think us coming back from college, the bakery had already, we could see that it was something, that it was going to continue to grow. And so I was the first one to come back in again full time. And even though I went to college and worked full time, throughout all the years that I went to college, but once I came out, I think I really started focusing a little bit more, and then my sisters followed through. And I think the whole family really at that point, all of us were there. My parents, my siblings, aunts, uncles. There was quite a family
Everybody
event.
came involved.
Yeah.
It's a real family business.
Yes, for sure.
So how were you able to maintain the quality and the service of Porto's as you grew to multi-locations?
That's maintaining quality is probably one of the hardest things for any restaurant or bakery as you grow. And, I think part of it at the beginning was just us being there day and night, basically, and being very, very involved. My sisters and I and my parents were not just the owners. We were there, sun up to sundown, 6-7 days a week for years. I'm talking about maybe 10 years. So we really learned our craft. We really were able to train the team that we had with us really well. There were no manuals. There was nothing like that. There was definitely no HR, no accounting. It was just a family and a small team of employees that we had. But we really did a good job, not only learning our craft really well, but also being able to work with the team to not only show them how to do the products, but really get them to be passionate about what we did, to make sure that we did a really good job. When you bake, every product can be different depending on how you touch it, how you mix the dough or whatever. So it really takes a lot of effort and a lot of passion and desire to do a really good job. And I think we were able to kind of make that part of our culture, basically.
So what are the core values of Porto's that have really defined the bakery?
So, to be truthful, we didn't really have core values until maybe a few years. We did always have core values. We didn't put them on paper. I always say that we lived them. We didn't put them on paper. But because of the growth, not too long ago, we decided to put them on paper. And really, one of them is family. And one of the unique things about us is that when my mother started making cakes out of the house, you can imagine it was mostly friends and family. So to this day, we try to treat our customers and we think of them as friends and family. Part of that also goes to our customers, to our employees. And we try to do the same thing. Roger was speaking earlier about how, they treat their employees. We try to do the same thing as much as possible. The other thing would be quality. I think that's something that my mother really stood for. She was really passionate about what she did, and quality was something that, if it didn't come out right, the customer's never going to see it. So we really focus on that. The other one is community involvement. For many, many years, every community that we're in, we really try to be involved. We basically donate all the pastries that are left at the end of the night, are donated, all of them, are donated to charities. So we've been doing that for years. We work with children's hospital, all sorts of nonprofits, small churches, communities, nonprofits. We work with almost in every community that we're in, really focus on that. And I would say lastly would be passion, a passion for what we do, and integrity. The fact that we were a family business, my parents were very ethical, really all of that not just was passed down to us, but also to our team and to our workers. And I think to this day, I think that's part of our success. The fact that customers really trust us, believe in us, not only love our pastries, but really have a unique connection to us. I really feel that, a lot of businesses are successful, but I feel like our business really has a unique connection to our customers. And I think the integrity part of it, the quality, the pricing, the fact that it's still a family business, that they see us, that we're working. I think all of those together really we've been able to build not just, an institution in Southern California, but really a business where people really feel connected to it.
So Portos has had this great run of, I'm going to call it success. It was slow building success, but it's had a great success. Now, COVID came, and suddenly people had to, in many cases, close down or not really go out. What are some of the things that Portos did to survive the COVID pandemic?
Yes.
And how have you come out even stronger?
Right. Yeah. COVID was probably the most difficult time, at least for me personally, to lead, the business. It was really challenging. Prior to that, we had never had any layoffs. We had never had any, I don't think we actually had a down year. For 30 years prior to that, all we knew was continuous growth and working on that. And then all of a sudden, our business dropped by 50%. So we had to make some huge changes. The other thing is most of our customers walk into the bakeries and order their pastries, and they basically shop, and many of them sit down and enjoy some of the pastries, and others just go home and share with their families. So all of a sudden, we realized that that can no longer exist at least at the beginning of COVID. So we actually shut the bakeries down to customers, and the team our team just did an incredible job. All of us really probably got more done, in a week, transforming the business model. And what we did would basically, all the customers were either ordering online, and we set up the online ordering the team did over maybe a 3-day. So we shut down for 3 days, reopen again 3 days later. And now customers could order online from their home or from wherever, from their phone, order whatever they wanted. That was one way. The other one was, which is really interesting. So we started with that. And and I personally was involved on the first store that we started in Buena Park. And we realized that a lot of our old customers, not only our old customers, but older customers too, by that I mean older in age, had a hard time ordering online. So they would just show up to the store, but we couldn't see them inside the store. So basically we probably on day one, we realized, oh my gosh, we need to, adapt this. So what we did, which is really interesting, we basically, we took our phone system and created at each store with a number for each store. We created like a phone, like a call center, and the old register stations, we put a phone next to it. So if you walked up to the bakery, we would give you a menu with a phone number, and we'd say, call this, and most people would drive up. So basically we would say, okay, drive into a spot, and we had a number on the spot. You would call up, and you would get one of the old cashiers that now has a phone, and instead of just being in front of us like we are right now, you'd be in the parking lot, and you would place your order. You would give us your credit card, we would process it, and then we would take the pastries or the food, whatever that was, to your car. And it worked out really well. Customers loved it. And we ran that for almost a year. So for a whole year, we didn't allow any customers come into the bakery. And it worked really well. We never got back up to anywhere near what our sales were prior to COVID, but it was great. It was great feeling. Probably the most challenging thing is keeping our team safe. So we had to learn a lot rather quickly. And And it was very stressful. I mean, we had a call every morning. We would have a call with all the managers, all the team members to find out, if anybody was ill, what we could do about it, how to continue to keep us safe, learning like everybody else did. It was very challenging. So we're really, proud of what the team and all of us were able to achieve, and the fact that we were able to get through it. And I really believe that we came out of it stronger and with the sense that we could do anything pretty much.
And so now customers can order both ways, right?
Yes.
So they can do the curbside.
Yes.
Or they can come in and enjoy the atmosphere of.
Yes. But we find that customers, since we've opened, which was about a year and a half ago or so, actually our sales continue to grow every day. It's almost like customers were, cooped up for a year or so, and they don't want it, they don't want to order for home. They want to come out. So our stores are busier than they've ever been for dine in, and it's great. It's a great time, and it's wonderful for us. I mean, going through what we did, for us as operators and taking care of customers our whole life, it was wonderful to see customers back in and their smiles, and for us to be able to take care of them, and for them to see them having a great time with their families. It was just amazing. Just an amazing experience.
Raul, you've been in this industry now for a number of years. Yeah. You've seen a lot. You've done a lot. I'm sure there's been mistakes. There've been successes. But what advice would you give a startup business that wants to develop a scalable restaurant concept? What advice would you give them?
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, looking back, we never started a business that was scalable. We probably couldn't have come up with a more difficult business to do it for ourselves. Even now, we've been able to scale to 6 bakeries, but I doubt that it'll be very challenging for us to scale nationwide or anything like that, because first of all, we make so many different products. But knowing what I know now, if somebody, and again, when we started our bakery, that was never our thought. We just wanted to feed the family and be able to, buy a house, what everybody else dreams of, right? But we never dreamed that we would have multiple stores. To be honest, I don't think that was within our family, that was never discussed. Not at the beginning, not even 5 years later. We were just trying to survive and make it happen. So we're very unique. But looking back now, if I were to do it all over again, I think if we wanted to build a business and the special connection we have with our customers, we probably would have to do the same thing. But if somebody wants to build a business that's more scalable, which is, there's no rule that said, there's people who open one restaurant are super happy with it. So I think you first of all, you would need to know what it is you want from life and what do you think you want. And if you want a scalable business, then you definitely need to do one, where it's very simple to scale. By that I mean, smaller menu items, something that is easy to train, to teach, all the things that we haven't done and we never did. So it makes it very challenging for us, probably much more so than anybody else. But that was never our intention. And to be honest with you, I'm fine with that. I mean, I always tell people that I don't want to have 1 million stores. I just want to have 1 million really happy customers that if I see on the street and they recognize me, they say, "Oh my gosh, I love your place." And to me, that's what I really want from life.
So it's one of the keys to being able to scale and maintain the quality is to be conscious of how many products your restaurant or your business is going to scale.
Yes.
Because consistency across locations,
it's tough.
Will get more challenging. So, any other advice that you could give a young restaurateur?
I would say, one of the things, if you are going to scale, one of the things that's important that we probably didn't do at the beginning and we should have, which is develop a team for where you're going to be in a few years, not where you are today. And most small businesses, just because of the cost, tend to have just enough people to run that day's operation, basically. And they're not thinking towards the future. So that's definitely one. And the other one, make sure that you realize that at every phase of your business, we've gone from a little tiny shop and then we grew to into ever larger stores until then we stopped that process and just started building independent stores. And at every phase, different things become important. At the beginning, it's all about hard work, making a great product, and just showing up every day and taking care of your customer. I don't think that changes. But that's what's important. Once you open a second store, now managing employees becomes a challenge because you're not there, to work with them, to develop a relationship as much as before, to pass down the knowledge, the passion for food, all of that, the customer service. So that changes. And then as you open another store, so at every phase, there's different things that change. So I would say probably that one of the most important things, if you're going to scale a business, whoever the leadership is or the ownership, you really got to be ready to continue to evolve, to continue to grow in every aspect of your business, not just the business, but yourself too. Because if you can manage multiple employees, you're not going to be able to scale. And you have to know about accounting, finance, marketing, everything, a little bit at least, or at least enough to hire somebody for the things that you don't know how to do well, and to be able to manage them. So it's really interesting. But I would say stay adaptable, be willing to continue to learn throughout your life, take classes, take seminars, read as much as you can, surround yourself with knowledgeable people that have gone through that path in the past. I think that helps a lot, and all of that. But more than anything, I would say stay open-minded. And even in the years that you mentioned that I've been, so much has changed just in the culture of this country and how people see food. 40 years ago, food wasn't as important as it is today for our customers. So we continue to evolve, even our offering, the sense of quality, everything. You got to continue. It's a continuous evolvement of the business. I think if you stay stagnant, especially in today's world, you pretty much die out. All of us, I'm sure, around us can see examples of that, especially in technology where it moves so quickly.
Oh, that's great. Well, I want to thank you, Raul, for joining us on today's show. We're going to come back here in just a few minutes. We're going to have you and Roger. We're going to do a panel together.
All right, great.
It's now time for our leadership example. Today's leadership example comes from entrepreneurshipdrive.com. Here are 30 ideas for scalable entrepreneurship. It's now time for today's leadership lesson being delivered by Dr. Lorenzo Bizzi, strategy professor at Cal State Fullerton. Today, Dr. Bizzi will be talking about scaling a business.
Hi, I am Lorenzo Bizzi, and here's today's leadership lesson, which is about scaling up your business and leadership. Your business is growing. You scaled up your facilities. You hired many employees. You might naturally think your role as a leader becomes more central. Paradoxically, unless you are careful, your role as a leader might decrease. 4 challenges you will face. First, research shows that as you scale up your business, your time spent strategizing decreases. You're wrapped in the whirlwind of daily activities and you don't have time to set up a clear vision for the future of your company. Second, research shows that as you scale up your business, your decision-making authority decreases rather than increasing. When you're small, everyone comes to you to discuss matters, but as you grow, they can't come to you anymore and will have to make decisions without your involvement. Third, research shows that as you scale up your business, you have less control over operations and activities. In a small company, the networks are dense and you can be aware of what is happening all the time. With a large company, networks get sparse and knowing what's going on becomes tough. Fourth, you are no longer the expert. As you grow, you hire specialists in marketing, operations, procurement. They have better technical knowledge than you. If they don't see you as the expert, it will be hard to be perceived as the authority. And if you're not perceived as the authority, people might question your role as a leader. You might perceive that your company is getting bigger and bigger, while your role is getting smaller and smaller. Great leaders overcome those 4 challenges and find a way to reinforce their role in the company. Here's the key. Paradoxically, you should do more by doing less. Delegate more tasks. The natural reaction to these challenges is to resist delegating activities. It's a fatal mistake. You need to protect the time spent setting the strategy and vision of your company so that you can guide and inspire your managers. Cut meeting time. The natural reaction to the challenges is to increase meetings so that you can have access to more information. The more meetings you do, the less efficient they become. Make them shorter, more focused, more structured. Monitor less and make people more accountable. Decrease the monitoring that managers do, but increase time setting their specific goals and ensuring they have the resources to achieve them. As you scale up the business, you shall scale down control and focus on what truly drives performance. I am Lorenzo Bizzi, and this has been your Leadership Lesson.
Thank you, Professor Bizzi, for that terrific leadership lesson. So it's now time for our leadership panel. We have our 2 terrific guests, Roger Koch and Raul Porto. Thank you for rejoining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So the way the panel is going to work is this. I'm going to ask each of you a question. You'll actually both have the chance to answer each question as we go. What is the biggest mistake that you ever made in the restaurant business? What did you learn from it? And how has it made you a better leader?
Well, one of the biggest, there's probably a few mistakes I definitely have made through the years, but one that comes to mind that I learned a lot from was it's actually not in the restaurant operating business, but it's actually in the financial business. And it was in 1987, October.
Oh my
we
gosh,
had the
you remember
biggest,
the exact
I was
time.
around there, biggest stock market crash in history at that time. The Dow dropped almost 23% in one day. And we had some investments in the stock market, and we decided to pull them all off, put it into cash. And we didn't get back into the market with those investments till later in 1980, the following year. And in hindsight, that was probably the worst thing we could have done. The market started to recover in November, and we would have been much better off just leaving it in the market. So what it taught me was not to panic when you have situations like that. Just to settle down, kind of reassess what's going on. And also, when you have situations like that, there's often some great opportunities. It's not all doom and gloom. So it was a really great learning lesson for myself, not only in the financial markets, but in the business aspect of running a restaurant. You'll have some issues, there might be crises with a variety of things. Not to panic, to settle down, kind of reassess, take the time to do it. And often the best course of action is no course of action, to be honest with you. And there's often great opportunities during those times as well.
What about you, Raul? What has been your biggest mistake, and what have you learned from it, and how has it made you a better leader?
Well, over the last 40 years, I've made hundreds, if not thousands of mistakes. I don't know that I can remember one huge one, but I made a lot of little ones or important ones too. And I think the most important thing for anybody that makes, you're going to make mistakes. It's really learning from them and not even seeing the mistakes. I come to a point where I don't see them as mistakes. I see them as opportunities to learn and to get better. And I think as long as you do that, and over time, it almost, for me personally, it has become, how can I say, almost like where most people, if they make a mistake, they frown on it, they're trying to hide it. For me, it's almost like I'm liberated by it. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this for this many years and whatever. And like I said, there were hundreds of them. So I think for me, probably, I can't remember any big mistakes, but I can remember all the little ones, and all of those have really helped me to get better.
So learning from the mistakes.
Learning from mistakes is probably the most important thing about mistakes.
All right.
And sometimes, like Roger said, not doing anything isn't one of the options. But
So our second question,
yes,
and Raul's going to answer this one first.
okay.
What role do you see social media and technology playing in the restaurant and food industry moving forward?
Social media, in my opinion, social media and technology, especially since COVID, have really just taken off. If you think about it, restaurants, prior to COVID, most restaurants, customers would just come in. Now you have restaurants selling through 5 or 6 third-party deliveries, pre-order, reservations. I mean, there's so much technology in a restaurant nowadays than there was prior to COVID. And so I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, the technology inside the restaurants and facing the customers and also in the back of the house has just taken off really much, a lot. And I would say social media is also playing a huge role in the life of a restaurant. I mean, whether it's reviews, which have become huge, or marketing on social media. I mean, we've gone from probably having one person part-time for the last 10 years, and then maybe 6, 7 years ago, one person full-time. That person then turned into a full-time role, and now we have a team of maybe 5 or 6 that just handle social media.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Roger, what about you? How do you see social media and technology changing the restaurant industry?
Yeah, it's definitely already had a huge impact, and I think it's going to continue. With social media, it's a great way to communicate with your customers, get feedback from them, find out what you're doing right, what you're not doing so right, and where you can improve on. I think that's huge. How to transact with them is another thing. Obviously, online ordering, all the different ways that you can do that now. I think that's going to continue to evolve. And certainly the big buzzword right now is AI, and in VR, virtual reality as well. AI, I think, a way to be able to crunch data and maybe better serve your customers. There's great opportunity there also to take care of certain parts of the support area for the business. Definitely, I think AI is going to have some benefits. I think virtual reality could be a great way to train store associates as well and use that as an avenue. I do think you have to always keep in mind, though, at the end, how it impacts your customers and the product that you're giving them. You always want to meet or exceed your customers' expectations, and certainly you have to be careful. One of the things we don't do, we haven't done it in and out, is we don't do we don't do delivery because we feel that it compromises our food. Because our food, depending on how long it would take to get delivered somewhere, may not be at the same quality that our customers would expect it. So I think you have to balance some of this out with the quality expectations that your customers have, and as well as you have internally. You always want to meet or exceed those customers' expectations.
All right. So our next question is for both of you, but Roger, you're going to answer this one first.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about scaling and growing, and that's really the theme of today's show. what are the biggest threats to effective scaling that businesses must manage?
Yes. I think I talked quite a bit about it, but it's people. And you have to, and I know Raul talked about it in his segment, about being prepared for that scaling by developing people. You're only as good scaling as the type of people, the store managers that you can place into a future store or stores. You're only as good as the quality of those people. And so you have to continue to develop your people, invest in them. I know we have a university where we invest in our people constantly, and you have to have a bench of strong people, potential future leaders at all times. Otherwise, you can't grow effectively, and that's really the key, because if you don't develop your people and invest them, and you put a store manager in a store that's not ready to be a store manager, then that's where you have the problems. You know, executing on delivering products and food to your customers, you know, hitting customer expectations on service and things like that. So to me, the one big area is developing people, constantly getting ahead of the curve, and having a strong bench.
Yeah, so the threat there is, if we try to grow before we have the people that are needed, the people that are ready to be able to really operate and sustain that growth.
Absolutely.
And we have to avoid that. Raul, what about you? What do you see as the biggest obstacle or the biggest threat to successful growth for a business?
I mean, I agree with Roger. It's the people, but also culture too. Make sure that you have a strong culture within the organization that will be able to, you know, as you open more stores, will be able to follow that. And I mean, when I mean culture, it's everything. It's how you take care of people, how you take care of customers, your passion for the food, you know, things as simple as making sure that that everything is as fresh and as good as it could be. And that's something that simple. You got to make sure that every employee within the organization feels the same way about it. So I think that's probably that, first having the people and then the culture is probably the two most challenging things as you grow.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The culture is all interspersed. You have to have a culture and know what you are and what you want to be, and continue to nurture that and make sure everybody understands it in the organization. That's a real key to that.
And so that managing the culture and maintaining the culture during growth gives a consistent experience.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's now time for the final word. This is a chance for each of you to share one final pearl of wisdom with our viewers. And Raul, you get to go first.
I would say, I know Roger mentioned it earlier, find something that you really enjoy and that you're good at, and focus on that. Any business, it doesn't matter, what type of business, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And if you're not passionate about it and you don't enjoy it, most likely you're not going to be successful. And you have to stick with it long enough to really start. I mean, you could say that more than I. We were I didn't feel that we were even mildly successful until maybe, 15 years later or so. So if we didn't like what we were doing and we weren't passionate about it 15 years later, we would have missed out. And I think that's probably the most important thing I can say, that you really have to find something that you can see yourself doing for many years and enjoying it, continue to grow with it, and not staying behind and being passionate, showing up every day like it's your first day at the job and you love it and you're excited and all the things that are, yet to come.
So find your passions and stick to things that you're really good at.
Exactly.
What about you, Roger? It's time for your final word.
Well, it may run counterintuitive in this day and age where we have a lot of brash leaders and everything, but I really think it's a cornerstone to being successful as a leader and developing a business is to have a real strong degree of humility, lead from a humble heart. I think it makes you approachable. puts you in a set of mind where you can admit when you make mistakes, where you're open to hearing different ideas, where you can change maybe your opinion and what you're thinking, and let other people lead for you when it's appropriate. So, you know, in this day and age, that doesn't get a lot of spotlight. But to me, it's one of the keys of being an effective leader is to have a base of humility and being humble and being open to people and respectful all the way through that. And so that's my pearls of wisdom I would pass along.
And you know, leaders that can maintain that humility will keep themselves open to the great ideas and the great expertise around them.
Yeah.
And there you have our final word. Thank you, Raul, and thank you, Roger, for joining us on our leadership panel. It's been great.
Thank you for having us, Jay. I really enjoyed the conversation.
And thank you so much. It's great what you do for the community, for the school, for the students. It's awesome.
If you have a question or need advice, connect with us by email, leadership@fullerton.edu, or on Instagram @CSUF-CFL. Thank you for tuning in to today's show where we discuss the opportunity and challenges of growth. Thanks to our featured guests, Roger Koch and Raul Porto, as well as Professor Lorenzo Bizzi for delivering today's leadership lesson. Join us each episode of The Leadership Voice, where your leadership development is exactly why we are here. I'm Jay Barbuto, here at the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership at Cal State Fullerton, and we'll see you next time right here on The Leadership Voice.